Hey guys, during the holidays, I got the Sega Genesis Ultimate Portable Game Player. It's basically a Genesis handheld system, but with built-in games. These things aren't really new and have been around since the mid-2000s. I believe they were initially sold as the Sega Gopher and was very popular in Russia and China. You can usually pick this up at Target, Walmart, or Amazon. Originally, they had about 20 games, and as AtGames re-released them a number of times throughout the decade, they added more games. The latest reincarnation, called the Genesis Ultimate Portable, has 85 games. Half of them are Sega Genesis Mega Drive games, while the other half are just third-party games, sort of like fillers. For me, the major selling point wasn't the included games, but the ability to load my own Genesis ROMs. In this video, I'll do a review of this neat portable Sega Genesis, as well as show you how to add more games with corresponding screenshots. The latest version of this portable system has a really nice white and blue color scheme. Previous models were black and orange or black and blue, but the latest recolor is my favorite. It has a 2.8 inch 320 by 240 LCD screen, which is quite bright with decent viewing angles. Looking at it from the left, top, bottom angles were okay, but from the right side you could see a bit of fading. It features 6 control buttons and a digital pad. The D-pad isn't bad and the buttons are actually really responsive. The D-pad works a lot better than it looks. I was expecting it to be horrible, but it was actually very good. This system obviously uses software emulation and is powered by FireCore, which is used in most of the Sega Genesis Master Drive emulation systems like RetroGen. There is a menu and start button, a couple of LEDs to show you the battery and power on status. It has 2 output ports for audio video as well as headphones. It features a volume dial and a mini USB port for charging. It runs off of a replaceable 750 milliamp hour lithium battery. Most importantly, it has a full-size SD card to run your own ROMs. With the ability to load your own ROMs from the SD card, it opens up this unit to hundreds of Genesis or Mega Drive games. So the biggest SD card that I think you can use is 8 gigabytes, and it should be formatted in FAT16 or FAT32. So I'm using the 256 megabyte version because I don't have a lot of ROMs that I want to run. But the 1 gig, 2, or 4 should be more than sufficient. To load ROMs on it, all you have to do is make sure you have a folder called Game, and then just copy over your bin files. And I believe it supports bin and gen files. And I like to rename them so that they don't have spaces, but you can just drag and drop them in as long as they're in the right format. So next I'll show you how to add some screenshots to the ROMs that you add to the SD card. If you want the UI to be a little nicer and have the corresponding screenshot to match up with your game, you need to download another app called ScreenGopher. You also have to make sure you have some images of screenshots. I got them from emumovies.com, and you have to format them or resize them so that they're 120 by 112. So they're really small little thumbnails. Next, you'll need to run an application called ScreenGopher, and what this does is it generates a MDB.DAT file, which includes the name of the games that you want to load. So you can type them in manually, and here what I did was I'm going to do one for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and I also load up the corresponding thumbnail or screenshot for it. And it's very critical that you name the game exactly like the way it's named for the bin file. So Sonic the Hedgehog 3, for example, it needs to match up with the name. So I'm just going to copy and paste it without the extension. And then you go save, apply the changes, and it will show up in the games list here. Now, the easiest way to do this, especially if you have a lot of games, is just import a list of them. So I'm going to clear the list, and I'm going to just import the games list from the options of ScreenGopher. So anything that's in the game folder, it will import. So go File, List, Import, and then choose the directory that has the game. So in my case, it's in this folder here. I go OK. And as you can see, it imported all the games, all the .bin ROMs into there, and I didn't have to type anything out. And from here, I can attach or load the thumbnail for that ROM. So I'm going to go through here and do that. Make sure you click Load, select the appropriate image, and then save game or apply changes to each and every one of them. And I'm going to go through this list and do it quickly. And what this will do is associate the thumbnail with the game ROM, and this way whenever you basically have it selected in the menu, it will show up instead of just a blank screen. And it just tidies up the game menu and makes it a lot easier to figure out what game it is, especially since the file names of the games are usually truncated. So it doesn't show you the full file name, and sometimes you may not know what game it is. After you associate all the thumbnails to the game, just go through and make sure they all have one. Then what you want to do is hit the file and go save as. You want to save the MDB file to the games folder on your SD card. So name it MDB.DAT. And this is what holds the games list as well as the thumbnails. With the ROMs and MDB.DAT loaded onto the SD card and inserted into the system, navigate to page 9 and then go down to SD card. And once you hit the start button, you should see the games that I loaded. And as you can see, as you scroll through them, they should have thumbnails or screenshots next to them, just like the onboard games. So now I'm going to test a couple of games that I loaded onto the SD card. And this, of course, is Street Fighter 2. And the great thing about this unit is that it does have the 6 control buttons. So you will have light, medium, and high for your punch and kicks. So you should be able to do all your moves. So that's what I really like about this system. And if you remember, the original Genesis controller had only 3 buttons, the A, B, and C. So they were able to add the X, Y, and Z into there. This is Street Racer. And it's kind of glitchy in the menus, but it seems to work fine. So you can see that there's some graphic errors, but once you get the game loaded and started, it seems to work fine. So I think most games will work just perfectly fine. There are a few that don't work at all, like Super Street Fighter 2, I believe. There was some graphical issues, and I'll show you that in a bit, but I'm just going to play through a little bit of Street Racer here. And Street Racer, of course, is very similar to Mario Kart, and it was available on the Super Nintendo as well. And so it's one of my favorite kart racing games from that era. Now I'll load up Super Street Fighter 2. It seems to work when you load the game up, but once you get into the game, you'll notice some really bad graphical errors. There's a lot of glitching going on, but as you can see, as it's loading up, the menu is fine, but and you can select your character. It shows up fine, but once you start getting into the game and start playing, you'll know what I'm talking about, and it starts getting all weird and everything. So some games do have this behavior, but I'd say 90% of them work just fine. Now I'll test out some of the preloaded games that are already installed, like Altered Beast, one of my favorite Sega games. This Sega Genesis portable is a great way to relive your childhood memories on the go. The Sega Genesis Mega Drive library is massive, and there should be many games that you'll be familiar with, from Sonic to Mortal Kombat to Street Fighter. Anyways, links to everything I mentioned should be in the description, so check it out if you're interested. Comment, like, share, or subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.